Hey, this is Jomo Johnson. I hope you're doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time to view the video. I feel a compulsion to speak against YouTube channels that oftentimes are faithful and biblical, but unfortunately monetize their channels, therefore you cannot trust them. Again, I'm speaking about YouTube channels, hosts that oftentimes can be faithful, mostly biblical, but because of the monetization of their channel, you cannot trust them. I want to start with someone who I've respected for years. Uh, Primarily, I was introduced to him because of his, I think it was the Jesus Peace album, Ruslan, Ruslan. Ruslan, who started off as a Christian hip hop artist. I loved his Jesus Peace album. I think that's the name of his album. He flipped the Games album, if you remember, Jesus Peace, and kind of made it a Christian version. That's kind of where I was introduced to him. And, he has a history of Christian hip hop being in CHH. And then he transferred to podcasting and has become one of the most popular Christian podcasters. He does conferences. Faithful brother, faithful Christian. But the one flaw that I'm seeing now in his ministry, along with others, is the monetization of your YouTube channel. This, in my opinion, absolutely is contrary to the heart and the will of God, especially as it relates to relaying truth. Okay? So I want to bring up an example that I think should be followed from the Apostle Paul, uh, who oftentimes went without donations in order to prove that he was an apostle, and also to not be a burden on the church, not be a burden on the church. So the Apostle Paul, as we know, was a tent maker who supported himself in order to avoid being a financial burden, and also did this to be an example. And another kind of primary motive that he talks about was he wanted to prove that his motives were 100% absolutely clear of any other intention apart to glorify Christ. Here is the problem with YouTube channels, including Ruslan, Mike Winger, the Smart Christian, who is Corey Paul. All of these men who monetize their channels, they're getting paid for views. They're getting paid for views. So imagine, listen to this. Imagine every time you did a YouTube video, a YouTube channel, you got paid $700. How many videos would you do in a day, in a week, in a month? How about this? If you knew that the topics that you covered would bring in twice the amount of money compared to other topics, what topics do you think personally you would cover? This is a heart and also a sin, but most importantly, an example issue. And as I read Ruslan's comments, and I was listening to a video, I was listening to Cliff Buell do a commentary on Ruslan and his engagement with the pastor speaking about Halloween. And Ruslan seeks to kind of play the line a little bit at times when he doesn't like to be called out on a particular issue that he's wrong in, the Halloween issue. He seeks to kind of use the term Christian liberty, right? So I mention this because I myself work for a church. Again, if I didn't mention this before, my name is Jomo Johnson. I have a bachelor's in biblical studies, a master's of divinity from Westminster Theological Seminary. I've worked in the PCA, UMC, PCUSA, and I myself, as a children's and youth ministry director, had to say no to a trunk or treat Halloween type event. I just made the choice. I just said, this isn't really Christ-like. Uh, this isn't really portraying or communicating the gospel. I had to fight a battle to change that. And so when I see somebody like Ruslan, who seeks to kind of toe the line of Christian liberty, knowing that every video he's making this amount of money, I think it's time to call out Christian content creators who monetize their channel. How about this? How about this? Do and follow the example of the Apostle Paul. Get a fucking job and go to work and make your YouTube videos demonetize and show that your example and your motive is 100% pure. I speak against Ruslan, the smart Christian Corey, not Corey Paul, I'm sorry, he's one of my favorite rappers. I think his name is Corey Smart, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. And while I do, I want to bring out another very popular Christian content creator. I think his name is Mike Winger, if I'm not mistaken. I appreciate Mike Winger for the most part, but it seems like you're just creating content that accuses other brothers and sisters in the faith who you don't agree with. And I know you made a video about that. I'm not calling you an accuser of the brethren. I'm not calling you Satan, as you would probably say. Not at all. I think you're orthodox, you're saved, you're going to heaven, you love Christ. But again, the motive, if you're making money off your videos, if you're making money by speaking on these things, then I think you have to acknowledge that what you speak about, where you speak about it, and how you speak about it might be influenced by monetization. If it's not, stop monetizing your channel. I don't have that many followers. I have two YouTube channels, combined following of maybe 1,000 subscribers. But I've made the choice. I'm not going to monetize ever. I just don't want that to be part of my motive, and I don't want that to get in the way of what I create and why I create. And I also want to acknowledge that I know that you men, you built these channels from nothing. So I appreciate that. But the fact that now at a certain point that you continue to build and speak and create videos, I think the smart Christian, he said a few days ago he was going to leave YouTube to do a church plant. Every time I go on YouTube, I get a notification. He's got a new video out. I think the challenge is to work for the church or to get a job, to stop monetizing these channels, and to create based upon heart and not based upon money. Ruslan, thank you so much for your faith, your life, and everything you do. But I would respect you and your channel, and I would watch you so much more if you stop monetizing it, because it seems as if you're trying to play both sides of the fence. You're trying not to offend, you're trying to appeal, you're trying to be a Christian liberal, and also not call out particular things that might get your channel demonetized. For example, all of these Christian content creators, the damn Antichrist is in the White House, and none of you say anything. None of you say anything. You don't speak about how Trump fulfills almost every prophecy of the final Antichrist. You don't speak about how Matthew 9:27 seems to be within a few months of being reached. You don't speak about how the book of Thessalonians talks about the one who restrains being taken away is being fulfilled as America is losing its influence in the world as a beacon of light and moral influence. So there's things that you won't speak about because you would lose money. You personally would lose money. And my biggest concern is that it seems like there is no connection to local church. There's no accountability. Because listen, I know years ago when I was on YouTube and speaking against Meek Mill, those of you that might not remember, I had a viral debate against Meek Mill 2012. When I was speaking against Meek Mill and speaking against hip hop, people were calling my church, calling the church that I worked at, and confronting me, confronting my staff, confronting ministers there, confronting people there. I would never monetize the gospel. I would labor. And if I get a reward for that, or if I get paid for working for a church, that's fine. But I'm not going to monetize me speaking on a YouTube platform. So again, I speak of Ruslan, the smart Christian, I think his name is Corey, and if I'm not mistaken, Mike Winger. Stop monetizing your channels. Stop monetizing. If you made a statement tomorrow and said, from now on, I'm going to stop monetizing and speak what I believe and true, I think your subscriptions and subscribers would double. But until then, I love you. I appreciate you as brothers, but I'm not going to watch your channels. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to do it. I don't know what church you're part of. I don't know how much money you're getting paid. I don't know if you're doing this just for money. And I believe that most of you are toeing the line and saying things that get you more views. I believe that a lot of you, especially Ruslan, Mike Winger, and the Smart Christian, you just look for things to critique. There's so much to critique in the Christian faith. How about start with yourself? How about start with ourselves? And I'll start with myself. Flawed, finite, struggle with depression, addiction, fear, haven't always committed to my promises in the past, battle with so many things, right? I wrote a book about it. How about start with confronting yourself, accusing yourself, and placing yourself at the cross? So, sorry to go on this rant, this vent, but I had planned to do this maybe in a more conservative way, but ultimately, I hope that this reaches who it is planned and designed to reach. Thanks so much.